We are now going to look at, in a bit more detail, the vehicle configuration section of the NHVR portal. So some of the benefits in regards to this functionality, and before I continue any further, this is optional. So you do not have to build out the vehicle configurations if it does not suit you as a user, but it is definitely an option, and it does have benefits in regards to shortcutting the application process. So it's in the vehicle configurations functionality that you can build out your entire fleet. Now, for combinations or heavy vehicles, for example, cranes, this functionality definitely sees all of the benefits. Because a crane always is going to have the exact same mass and dimensions, the exact same details, that is where we are going to see the most benefits in regards to building out your entire fleet. For anything like a Class 2B double or road train, once again, because those details don't tend to change, you can put your 25-metre B double in, you can put your 19-metre B double in. That is going to be the exact same details every single time. So once again, you can see great benefits in adding those details in there once, submitting applications from there, and shortcutting that process. For oversized overmass combinations, in this functionality, and as I'll demonstrate shortly, you do not actually have to enter in all of the details. Okay, so you can have half completed vehicle details and still see benefits from shortcutting the process. So even if I wanted to put in a prime mover low loader or prime mover dolly low loader, if I can even enter in all of my registrations only, it will still save that information. I can still submit applications from there, and I will still see shortcuts in the application process. Okay, so it does have benefits for every type of combination, but once again, it is optional, and only if you see the benefits and only as you as a user sees those benefits, you can go ahead and utilize this functionality. But I am going to demonstrate it now. So back into my fake training environment of the NHVR portal, I'm going to navigate to the left side menu under the Access Permits heading and selecting on the Vehicle Configurations heading. So you can see here in my training environment, we do already have some vehicle configurations built out. So it's all about building up your entire fleet. You can start to see that here we've got a range of different combinations. So we'll start fresh. We'll select in the top right corner and we'll select the new configuration button. Okay, so I'm going to build out a new heavy vehicle configuration. Once you've selected that button, you'll see the pop-up box, so the reference. This is essentially allowing you just to title or nickname that configuration. Okay, so for cranes, it might be a unit number or a registration number, something that's going to uniquely identify from the list there, and you can see in the background here, each one of these has a heading, so whatever is going to help you as the customer identify, yep, that B double or that crane is the one I need, and we'll go from there. Okay. Once again, completely up to you as the customer and the user, and selecting OK. So I'm now entering in what is essentially step one of the application process. They are identical. Now, in my training environment today, the only thing that's actually different to the real version of the NHVR portal is some of the vehicle diagrams. There's not as many diagrams, unfortunately, in my training environment, but apart from that, all of the functionality, all of the fields are exactly the same. Okay, so I'm going to select the green button to start off with, select configurations. And we can see here we've got a list of different categories of heavy vehicles. So we've got agricultural, B double, controlled access bus. So you can see if I start to select in. So what I meant previously is normally in the real solution of the NHVR portal, I would actually have 10 different B double diagrams to select from. The same with the oversize overmass, it's actually going to give me completed vehicles, so the prime mover and the low loader. And in the SPV vehicle section as well, once again, it's going to give me a number of different configurations. Now for this demonstration, I am going to use the crane. So just selecting on the crane. Now the very first thing I need to do for any heavy vehicle combination, although this diagram is not the same color as my real crane, it doesn't look exactly the same, the most important thing here is the axles and the configuration. So in order to change the number of axles, I need to actually select over into this little icon of the vehicle. So for one unit, like a crane, it's just going to be one picture. For a OSM movement with a prime mover, a dolly and a low loader, you'll see 3 different icons here. So you'll have to select into each and every individual one. Now once selected on, you'll get a component drop-down list for every single diagram. So it's just about selecting the drop-down and making sure you are selecting the correct number of axles. It is very, very important that you are selecting firstly the correct configuration from the drop-down list, but also then making sure that the axles are correct. Now in the NHVR portal, depending on what axles you select or whether you're oversize or oversize over mass, it actually then allows you to complete the exact fields you need to complete. So if I am a 3-axle crane but I only select 2-axle, it's only going to allow me to put in the axle mass and spacings for 2 axles, and that's not correct. So I need to make sure I'm selecting the correct configuration and the correct number of axles. So we can see there now the diagram has updated, probably looking a little bit more like the real heavy vehicle combination, but as I said before, the most important thing here is just the number of axles. So as soon as I've got that correct, I'm going to jump back to my overall tab here and just start completing the details. Okay, so as I said before, just making sure that you select the correct configuration, the correct number of axles. You can see these fields here. They may differ depending on your configuration. So because I've selected an SPV crane, it's only going to ask me the details I need to complete as the customer for a crane. If I was to select a B-double application, you'll see a very different application and different fields, okay? So making sure step 1 of selecting the correct configuration, I cannot say it enough, selecting the correct configuration and the correct number of axles is really, really important to make sure that you are completing all of the details we need at the regulator and for the road managers. So I'm just going to go through now and make sure I'm completing all of the mandatory fields here. So I'll just put in some fake details. So just putting in the height and the total mass. Now for a crane, especially just a quick tip here, the forward projection and rear overhang are not mandatory fields, but from an access facilitator's point of view and a road manager's point of view, in order to complete the correct assessment, both of these fields need to be completed. Okay, so you will be required to select and then complete those fields. Okay. Below that is permit scheme. So if your crane is operating in a permit scheme or you would like to add any additional information in regards to the crane, please just type that in there. So once I've completed all of the mandatory fields and also making sure I add those optional fields as well that are definitely required, I need to return back to my little icon, and here is where I can actually put all of my registration details and also my axle mass and spacings. So once again, bear with me, I will make sure I complete all of these details. Okay. With the registration module in the portal now as well, you also will see a status of the heavy vehicle. Now this one's not found, of course, because it is fake, but you should be able to see your registration come up and there will be a little status, green if it's registered, red if it's not registered. Now, in order for a heavy vehicle to be issued a permit, it must be a registered component. So registered prime mover, registered low loader, registered crane, for example. So if it is coming up not registered, that is just your indicator that, okay, you need to either fix up that registration detail with the state jurisdiction, or of course just attach that information into the portal somewhere so that you are informing the regulator and the road manager that this indeed is a registered vehicle. So something just to be conscious of. As I said before, I am going to continue on with this detail here. Now this is where details might start to get a little bit confusing with my fake information here. So tyre size, ground contact width, axle group mass, load sharing, yes, it is a steerable axle, number of tyres. And the spacing, we'll go 1.65. So bear with me, I will just like to complete this for you so that I can show you all of the great benefits from a completed application. And the last axle here. So for a crane, your tyres are going to be exactly the same, your ground contact's going to be exactly the same, everything's going to be load sharing, everything's going to be steerable, and the number of tyres, and of course the spacing. Now, if you have any issues with completing the axle mass and spacings for any combination that requires it, my recommendation is don't just wing it, unfortunately, because if you just submit whatever fits through and it's not correct, the access facilitator will have to do an additional information request. That definitely slows down the process. If you are concerned about how to fill in this section here, please contact our hypercare team. They'll walk you through it. You'll have all the details. They'll prompt you to ask the correct questions, and then they will help you complete this detail here. It can definitely be quite confusing, so that is why I recommend contacting the hypercare team or just a member of the NHVR if you have any other contact details, and they will assist you with this section here, because it's definitely important to make sure this information is correct from the start to avoid any additional information requests later on in the process. So at this point in time now, I've completed all of the mandatory fields. I can save the application. So just save at the bottom of the page. If I then exit and return to the vehicle configuration section, I can see here unit number 1234. I've just got all of my crane details there. Now this is where we start to see those great benefits. Okay. I can now submit applications from my built-out configuration. So each little number here has a little floppy disk icon at the bottom right corner of each sort of square, and you can see there by running your cursor over it, apply for permit from configuration. Now if I select on that little button, it's going to give me a pop-up box again and a reference, but this is the nickname or the reference for your application. Now, once again, completely optional from the customer as to what you want to reference your application or nickname your application. So sometimes suburb to suburb, maybe, if I can spell, and then selecting OK. So it's whatever tool is going to assist you from your long list of applications to identify what application is what, selecting OK. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate the entire application process yet. That's a little bit later in the demonstration, but you can see here I have entered into the complete 6-step process. However, step 1 is already complete, and you can see there all of the details. I don't need to add those in again. Even across to my registrations and axle mass and spacing breakdown, everything is already complete. So I'm ready to move on to step 2. And that is the shortcut benefits we see in the application process. I'm just going to return back to the left side menu and select on vehicle configurations again. Now, for whatever reason, if those details change, maybe a registration has changed, maybe I did unfortunately get an information request, I need to fix something up for next time. Each one of these configurations is amendable, so you also have a little pencil icon where you can edit. So selecting on that is going to take you back into those details, and I can change something if it wasn't correct. Selecting save and exiting, and back to my vehicle configurations. You can also do the same thing by selecting the little square. You can see actions for item. I can apply for a permit, exactly the same functionality. I can copy the configuration. So instead of, if I've got cranes that are very, very similar, I can copy that configuration. It will essentially duplicate it. And then I can just change the small details instead of starting from the start. I can also archive, which is deleting from your view, but of course you can never delete anything out of the portal. So just archiving that configuration. So I might archive something that's not my crane. So archive. Yep. And you can see that's removed from my list. Okay, so that is all of the functionality to do with the vehicle configurations and building out your entire fleet, making sure that these details are kept up to date if you are choosing to utilize this functionality. And then as you can see there, submitting your applications and shortcutting the process. So some great benefits there.